I was 29 the last time I stepped foot in my parents' house. It was a chilly Sunday morning in late October, the kind where the air smells like damp leaves and the sky just sort of hangs there, low and gray like it's tired of pretending to be cheerful. I'd driven 3 hours without music, just the hum of the tires and my thoughts playing bumper cars in my head. I hadn't seen my family in nearly a year, not since my brother's birthday dinner where I was seated at the far end of the table like a forgotten guest. But my mom had called earlier that week, voice honeyed and casual, asking if I'd come down to see them for a bit. Just for lunch, she said. Nothing dramatic. I should have known better. My name's Brian. I work in software, live alone, pretty quiet life overall. Nothing flashy. I'm not estranged from my family, not officially, but I've always felt like I was tolerated more than loved. The spare piece that didn't quite fit into the perfect picture my parents were trying to frame. My brother, Aaron, 3 years older and born with that natural charisma that made adults chuckle and ruffle his hair, always fit the mold perfectly. He went to law school, married his college sweetheart, gave our parents 2 adorable grandkids, and lives exactly 20 minutes away from them. Me? I moved out of state the second I could afford rent on my own, dated here and there, poured myself into my career. The way my family sees it, Aaron built a life. I built a hobby. Still, I wasn't going down there to start anything. I told myself that repeatedly. I'd rehearsed how I'd keep things light, smile politely, dodge the jabs I knew were coming, and just leave after a few hours. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I thought I was mature enough to rise above it all. But deep down, I think I just wanted to be proven wrong. I wanted to believe that maybe things had changed. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. White paint peeling just a bit under the windows, garden gnomes my mom insisted were whimsical, and the same faded welcome mat that had been there since I was a teenager. I stood there for a moment, hands in my pockets, before knocking. My mom answered with her usual tight-lipped smile and a quick, perfunctory hug. "You look tired," she said before I could even say hello. "Are you eating enough?" Classic. Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary, something Aaron's wife probably prepped earlier. She's big on meal planning. I said hello to my dad, who gave me a distracted wave from his recliner without looking up from the news. The grandkids were over too, apparently, judging by the shrieks coming from upstairs. And of course, Aaron arrived just minutes after me, perfectly timed as always, breezing in with a joke and a bottle of wine. Everyone lit up. My mom kissed his cheek. My dad finally turned off the TV. Even the dog started wagging its tail like it had just seen Elvis. I stood there like furniture. We made small talk around the kitchen island. I asked about the kids' school projects, nodded through Aaron's story about some corporate merger I didn't care about, and politely declined the wine. "Still not drinking?" Aaron asked, eyebrows raised like that was some great character flaw. "Good for you, I guess." My mom gave a thin smile and changed the subject. That's when I noticed it. The wall. It used to be filled with framed photos, vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings where we all wore matching pajamas that I hated. But something felt off. I walked toward it slowly, like my legs weren't quite convinced I needed to see what my gut already knew. Every photo was there. Every memory. Except I wasn't in them. The shot from Disneyland in '98? Just mom, dad, and Aaron holding Mickey balloons. My face gone. The picture from my high school graduation? Aaron in his suit, my parents in front of the school sign, but I was missing. The Christmas photo from 2011? Aaron in his Santa hat, his arms slung around thin air where I knew I had stood. I leaned in. Not just cropped. Photoshopped. The edges were too clean. The lighting didn't match. Whoever did it tried to be subtle, but I work in tech. I know how masking works. They'd erased me. I turned to my mom. What would happen to the pictures? She didn't even look embarrassed. She just shrugged, reaching into a cabinet for plates like we were talking about weather. "Oh, Aaron cleaned them up a bit," she said. "Made them nicer." I blinked. "Nicer? I'm not in any of them." She paused, as if just realizing that. "Well, they look better this way," she said simply, then walked out to set the table. I stood there for a long time. I don't remember sitting down for lunch. I don't remember what I ate. I remember Aaron talking loudly, my dad laughing, the grandkids screaming, and me sitting there like a ghost in a room where I used to exist. Not a single person mentioned it again. No apology. No explanation. Like I was supposed to pretend it didn't matter that I'd been erased from my own family history. I left before dessert. My mom tried to pack me leftovers, and seemed mildly offended when I refused. "Don't be so dramatic," she muttered. "You always make everything about you." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't hug anyone. I got in my car and drove straight home, this time with the radio blasting just so I didn't have to hear my own thoughts echoing back at me. They've called a few times since then. Texted too. Mostly about upcoming birthdays or holiday plans. When I don't respond, I get the guilt trips. "We're all worried about you. You're being selfish. Why are you punishing us?" But they're not worried. They're just confused why their doormat stopped lying down. I haven't told anyone the full story. Not yet. Not even my closest friends. I've just said that things are complicated with my family. But last night, I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice tight, like she was trying to cry without ruining her mascara. "I don't understand what we did wrong, Brian," she said. "You're always so sensitive. Are you really not coming to Thanksgiving? You're tearing this family apart." I listened to it 3 times. Then I opened my laptop. Because if they want to pretend I never existed, maybe it's time I start pretending they don't either. But not before I do something they'll never forget. I didn't respond to my mom's voicemail. I didn't delete it either. I just let it sit there in my inbox like a loaded gun on a table, untouched, but impossible to ignore. For a while, I thought maybe I'd forget about it. Maybe the sting of that visit would fade, and I'd just go back to pretending, like I always had. But the thing about being erased, literally erased, is that it doesn't fade. It festers. Every time I opened a photo app or scrolled past an old memory on social media, I'd think about that wall, that gallery of my own life, rewritten without me. Like I had been an inconvenience, a smudge. A few weeks passed. I focused on work, buried myself in debugging code and long nights with takeout. I didn't answer texts. I stopped checking the family group chat, which I mostly stayed in out of habit anyway. It wasn't like they ever messaged me directly. Everything was either about Aaron's kids or some plan I was never invited to until the last second, as if I was an afterthought. A courtesy. A checkbox. Then came Thanksgiving. The text started the Monday before. "Mom, we're doing dinner at 3 this year. Aaron's in-laws are coming later. Hope you can make it. Aaron, don't be weird, Brian. Just show up. Mom, again, it would mean a lot to your father." Dad sent thumbs up. No apology. No mention of what happened. Just a casual expectation that I'd fall back into place like nothing had changed. Like they hadn't framed an alternate version of my entire childhood on their living room wall. I left them all on read. Thanksgiving morning, I got one more message from my mom. It was a photo. The table was already set. Crystal glasses, gold-trimmed china, centerpieces that looked straight out of a Pottery Barn catalog. And there, right in the middle, were personalized name cards in elegant cursive. One for Aaron. One for his wife. One for each of their kids. One for my parents. Even one for Aaron's dog, who apparently was considered family enough to earn a seat at the table. No card for me. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd I didn't know what else to do. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just excluded, I was being edited out. In real time. Like they were actively crafting a version of this family where I had never existed. I stayed home that day, made spaghetti, and watched old sitcom reruns. Around 5:30 p.m., I got a call from my mom. I let it go to voicemail. She sounded annoyed this time, not emotional. "We waited for you, Brian. Aaron told me not to, but I said we should. Why are you doing this? Why are you punishing us for trying to keep things peaceful?" That word again. Punishing. As if I was the one making things difficult. As if they hadn't rewritten my life out of existence and expected me to smile about it over mashed potatoes. That night, I went digging. I opened a folder on my hard drive labeled Old Stuff and started scrolling through pictures from the past 20 years. Real photos. The ones I had saved because they actually meant something to me. There was one of me and Aaron building a treehouse with our dad in the summer of '99. Another of all of us at my college graduation. Me holding my diploma, beaming, my mom with tears in her eyes. And there was one I had completely forgotten about, my 10th birthday party. I was in a homemade Batman costume, chocolate frosting smeared across my face, Aaron holding up a sign that said, "Happy birthday, little bro," with way too many exclamation points. I stared at that one for a long time, because it meant that once, at least once, this family had loved me, or at least pretended to. And somewhere along the way, that version of us got lost. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. A week later, I got a text from my cousin Megan. We'd always been close growing up, but drifted apart after she moved out of state. Still, we followed each other on Instagram and occasionally liked each other's stuff. Her message was short. Megan, hey, are you okay? I saw something weird at Aunt Laura's last night. I called her immediately. Apparently, Aunt Laura had pulled out a few old photo albums while Megan was visiting. Family pictures, holidays, all that. But the thing that caught Megan's eye was that several photos had been altered. Badly. Like, she could see where the edges didn't quite match. And more importantly, she remembered me being in them. She remembered the original versions. I swear, Brian, there was this one from that Christmas at Grandma's house when we were teenagers. You and I were standing in front of the tree making goofy faces. I know you were in that photo. But when Aunt Laura showed it to me, you were gone. Like you'd never been there. My blood went cold. Did you ask her about it? Yeah, Megan said, hesitant. She just kind of brushed it off. Said she didn't remember you being there. Which is insane, because you were literally the one taking most of the photos that year. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the pictures on my parents' wall. It wasn't just their house. It was spreading. I think they've been giving people the edited versions, Megan said quietly. Sending them out. Replacing them. I hung up and immediately called another cousin, Tom, who lived nearby and had always been neutral in the family drama. I asked him if he had any old photos saved from back in the day. He did. I asked him to send me the ones from my 21st birthday party. It had been at my parents' house, back when things were still normal-ish. I remembered us all taking a big family photo in the backyard under those tacky solar lights my mom loved. He sent it. I opened the image. I wasn't in it. Not just cropped. Not just blocked by someone else. I had been removed. Cleanly. Seamlessly. Like I'd never been there. I wanted to throw my laptop across the room. What kind of person does this? What kind of family? It wasn't until 2 nights later, after a long and restless scroll through every tagged Facebook photo from the last decade, that I realized how deep it went. My mom had been quietly untagging me from group pictures. My brother had posted a Throwback Thursday collage from our childhood. Every single photo was one I remembered, but in every one, I had been replaced or removed. It wasn't just erasure. It was replacement. Aaron's kids had been photoshopped into pictures from years before they were even born. A photo of a camping trip from 2007 now showed one of his daughters holding a sparkler, despite the fact that she hadn't even existed back then. In one image, my arm was still visible, around someone's shoulders, but the face was blurred, replaced with a mismatched, pixelated version of Aaron's youngest. I started to feel nauseous. This wasn't just my family being cold. This was calculated. Intentional. They weren't just pretending I didn't matter. They were actively rewriting history to pretend I never existed. The final straw came 3 days later. I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Cream cardstock, elegant calligraphy. It was from Aaron and his wife. They were renewing their vows for their 10-year anniversary. Of course, what caught my eye wasn't the invite itself. It was the photo they used. A full-color print of Aaron and his wife on their wedding day, standing under an arch of white roses. Only, that wasn't the original photo. Because I had been Aaron's best man. I had stood next to him that day, hand on his shoulder, smiling like an idiot. And in this photo, the man standing next to him was their oldest son, who had been 2 years old at the time. They'd photoshopped me out. Again, this time replacing me with someone who literally wasn't even old enough to walk down the aisle. I stood in my kitchen holding that invitation like it was a bomb. And maybe it was. Because in that moment, something in me snapped. The part of me that had tried to keep the peace. That had swallowed every slight. That had told myself, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Or, it's not worth the fight. That part of me died. They wanted me gone. They wanted to pretend I never existed. Fine. But I wasn't going quietly. I started planning something that night. Something they wouldn't see coming. Something they couldn't Photoshop their way out of. And when I was done, they were going to wish they'd just left the pictures alone. I didn't sleep the night I got that wedding invite. I just sat at my kitchen table, the card still propped against the coffee mug I never touched, staring at that photo like it might blink or speak or offer me some kind of explanation. I wasn't just erased from the picture. I was replaced. Literally overwritten by a kid who hadn't even been in preschool when the photo was taken. It felt like the final nail in a coffin I hadn't realized they'd been building for years. I'd spent most of my adult life excusing my family's behavior, downplaying it, telling myself I was just sensitive, or maybe not trying hard enough to connect, or maybe too different to really fit in. Aaron was the golden child. That was fine. Some families are like that. I could live with not being the favorite. I had built a life, had my own apartment, a steady job, friends who checked in on me. But seeing my image literally rewritten in family memories, that wasn't favoritism. That was something darker. That was exile. And for the first time, I let myself sit in the pain of that truth. Not brush it off. Not laugh it away. I let it hurt. Because it did hurt. The next few weeks were a blur. I barely got out of bed. I'd wake up late, work from home in sweatpants, barely touch food. My sleep was broken and shallow. And when I wasn't working, I was scrolling through old photos like I was trying to prove to myself I'd actually existed. I felt hollow, like a character in someone else's story who had just realized he was being written out of the plot. People noticed. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I told them I was just tired. My closest friend, Kevin, came over one Friday night and found me half asleep on the couch, surrounded by printouts of old photos like a deranged detective trying to solve his own disappearance. "What's going on, man?" he asked, nudging a stack of photos with his foot. "Did someone die?" "Yeah," I muttered, voice hoarse. "Me?" Kevin raised an eyebrow, but didn't laugh. He sat down across from me and listened. Really listened. I told him everything. The photoshopped childhood, the photos on the wall, the family events where I was never invited or tagged or named. I told him about the wedding invitation, the replacement, the way no one ever apologized or acknowledged it, how they always made it my fault for pulling away. When I finished, Kevin was quiet for a long time. "Dude," he finally said, "that's not just messed up. That's pathological. Like, that's cult-level gaslighting." I let out a dry laugh. I thought I was being dramatic. "You're not. That's some Twilight Zone stuff." He looked around the room, at all the photos I had printed and laid out like a memorial service. "So what are you gonna do?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. Revenge? Disown them? Call them out? Publicly? Quietly? I was still too tangled in the grief to think straight. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let them define me anymore. That night, after Kevin left, I opened a blank document on my laptop and started typing. Not a letter to them. Not a plan for revenge. Just my story. From the beginning. I wrote about what it was like growing up invisible. About the little slights that I used to tell myself didn't matter. About the birthday they forgot. The graduation dinner they skipped. The times they joked about me being the weird one. I wrote about the photos. The edits. The silence. And I kept writing. Every night. Until my fingers ached and my mind emptied. It was the first thing that made me feel like me again. Like I was taking my identity back, sentence by sentence. In the following weeks, I started reclaiming other parts of my life too. I cleaned my apartment top to bottom. I got a haircut, bought a new desk, rearranged the furniture. I deleted the family group chat from my phone, blocked my mom and Aaron on social media. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I needed space to breathe. I also started therapy. It had been a long time coming. I'd always made excuses, too expensive, too time-consuming, not for me. But the truth was, I was scared to sit with the things I'd buried. Scared to hear that maybe I had done something to deserve the way I was treated. But my therapist, a quiet, observant woman named Michelle, didn't let me go there. "You don't need to earn basic dignity," she said in one of our first sessions. "You don't have to perform to be worthy of love." That sentence cracked something in me. Over the next few months, I learned how to speak about my pain without minimizing it. I learned that boundaries weren't cruel, that it was okay to walk away from people who chose to harm you, even if they shared your DNA. I started going for long walks after work, letting my thoughts drift without dragging me under. I rediscovered my love for photography, real photography, not the kind that deletes people. I started shooting cityscapes at dusk, portraits of strangers at the park, candid shots of street performers. I created an Instagram account to share my work anonymously. Within a few weeks, it started gaining traction. One photo in particular, an old man sitting alone on a bench, silhouetted by the orange glow of a street lamp, got reposted by a local art page. It exploded. People commented about how haunting and beautiful it was. Someone said it felt like a visual poem about grief and healing. They didn't know how right they were. That photo became my profile picture, not because it was popular, but because it reminded me that I still had a story to tell, that I was still in the picture, even if others tried to crop me out. Then, one afternoon, an email popped up that stopped me cold. Subject line, Family Archive, request for photo submissions. It was from my Aunt Laura. Apparently, she and a few other relatives were putting together a digital memory book for Grandma's 80th birthday. They were asking everyone to submit old family photos and stories to compile into a slideshow for the party. I stared at the screen for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it, to delete it, and keep moving forward with my new, quiet life. But then I thought about the photos they'd already collected, the ones Aaron and my parents had probably submitted. I thought about how this archive might become the record, the version of our family history that would live on. And I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't do something, they'd win. So I started going through my hard drive again. But this time, I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was curating my version of the story. I pulled together photos they couldn't have deleted, ones I had taken on my own camera, or where I was the only person in the shot. I included goofy selfies with my cousins, behind-the-scenes photos from family trips, pictures of me and Grandma baking cookies in her old kitchen, flowers smudged on our faces, photos that proved I'd been there, that I'd mattered. I even included one photo from Aaron's wedding, the original version, where I was standing right next to him, beaming in my ill-fitting suit, holding the ring box. I labeled it Best Man 2013, and I wrote captions for all of them. Not snarky, not petty, just truthful. This was the summer we all went camping. Aaron and I fought over who would pitch the tent faster. I won. This was my college graduation. Mom said she was proud of me that day. This was my 10th birthday. Batman party. Grandma made the cake. I ate 3 slices and got sick. Worth it. I uploaded all of them to the shared drive. 3 days later, I got a message from Aunt Laura. Aunt Laura, thank you for sending these, Brian. Some of them brought me to tears. I'd forgotten how much you were part of everything. Another message followed. Megan, saw your photos. Thank you. I knew I wasn't crazy. The slideshow went live a week later. I wasn't at the party. I hadn't been invited. But Megan sent me a video of the slideshow playing on a screen in Grandma's living room. I watched as image after image filled the screen. Photos of me, laughing, building, celebrating, growing. The music was soft. The mood, nostalgic. And then came the wedding photo. The original. I watched as Aaron's face visibly stiffened in the video. His jaw clenched. His wife leaned over and whispered something. My mom looked away. Good. They weren't the only ones with the power to shape a narrative. I never got a direct message from Aaron. Or my parents. No apology. No explanation. But I didn't need one anymore. Because something had shifted. They wanted me gone. But I had reclaimed my place. Not by begging to be included. By proving I'd always been there. Still, this wasn't the end. Because while they were busy pretending I was invisible, I was quietly planning something they would never be able to ignore. I waited. Not for an apology. By now, I knew that wasn't coming. What I waited for was clarity. Not emotional, but strategic. Revenge wasn't about explosions, or yelling matches, or big dramatic gestures. It was about timing. Precision. Letting the truth slip into a space so public, so undeniable, that even the most manipulative people couldn't distort it anymore. And after reclaiming my own identity piece by piece, through my art, through therapy, through reconnecting with relatives who did remember me, I finally had the clarity I needed. I started with research. I began compiling timelines. I made a spreadsheet, not out of obsession, but necessity. Every family event I remembered being at. Every photo that proved it. Every altered version I had evidence of. I cataloged them all. The original photo from my 10th birthday party with me in it, and the one Aaron had posted last year where I'd been replaced by one of his kids. The college graduation my parents said they barely remembered attending, despite the video I had of my dad giving a toast. The family vacation in 2006 where my brother now claimed I didn't come because I was off sulking somewhere. Except there I was, in my cousin's scrapbook, helping build the bonfire. And most importantly, I kept track of who had shared or reshared the edited versions. Aunt Laura, Uncle Rick, my mother, Aaron. All of them had either reposted altered images or participated in this narrative rewrite. But I also tracked the ones who hadn't. My cousin Megan, for one. She'd become an unexpected lifeline, texting me regularly with updates, screenshots, things she overheard. She had screenshots of the family group chat where my mom would talk about me in third person, like I wasn't even in the room. It's best we don't invite Brian this year. He always makes things uncomfortable. Aaron's worried about the energy Brian brings. We're trying to keep things light. Let's not include him in the memory book photos, okay? We wanted to be positive. Positive. That word again. It burned. Megan also found something else. Apparently, Aaron had started telling people I'd distanced myself from the family after a nervous breakdown. Not because of their treatment, not because I was being actively erased from every corner of our shared history, but because I was emotionally unstable. That was the push I needed. So I reached out to the last person I ever thought I'd call again, Grandma. She was 80 now, sharp as ever, but quiet. She'd always been diplomatic in family matters, the type to mediate instead of take sides. But she was also sentimental. She kept boxes and boxes of photos, real ones, untouched, unfiltered. Photos my parents probably hadn't touched yet. I called her and asked if I could come visit. She sounded surprised, but warm. I'd love that, she said. It's been too long. I drove the next weekend. She lived in a small town just a few hours away, and when I got there, she greeted me with a frail hug and watery eyes. You look just like your grandfather, she said, touching my cheek. We had tea, talked about nothing at first, then about the family. I treaded carefully until I saw the old album on her coffee table. I asked if I could look through it. She handed it over. There I was, page after page, smiling, awkward, teenage me, holding sparklers, helping in the garden. Even Aaron and I, arm in arm, at his engagement party. There was no denying it. I'd been there. I'd mattered. And now I had the proof. Undisputable. Tangible. Grandma, I said softly, do you know that some of these photos are different online? She blinked. What do you mean? I showed her. My phone. Side-by-side comparisons. Original versus edited. The cropped birthday photos. The wedding picture. My literal deletion. Her hands shook a little as she held the phone. They did this? She asked. Yeah, I said. They did. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said something I didn't expect. You should tell people. I paused. You think so? I know so, she said. It's time someone did. So I began. First, I secured digital copies of Grandma's photos. She even helped me scan some of them. We laughed at how bad some of the old shots were. Her printer jammed 3 times, and we ended up eating frozen pizza on TV trays like it was 2002 again. For a moment, it felt like family was a real thing again. Not a lie, not a performance. Once I had everything, I sat down to build what I came to call the archive. Not for the public. Not yet. For now, it was a personal project. A Dropbox folder with clear labels. Originals. Edited versions, collected. Side-by-sides. Video evidence. Voice memos, from Grandma, Megan. I even made a timeline document. It was clinical, almost cold. Exact dates, image names, who shared what, where, and when. No commentary. Just facts. The pattern was clear. Over the last 6 years, I had been systematically scrubbed from the family history by Aaron, my parents, and, whether knowingly or not, a few others. With this archive built, I now needed the moment. The spark. The perfect time to expose it. Not just for vindication, but for impact. I didn't want to scream it into the void. I wanted the truth to hit the exact people who'd spent years pretending I was nothing. And that's when fate handed me a golden opportunity. Megan texted me a screenshot. Aaron and his wife were planning a family legacy video, a slick, edited documentary-style project to celebrate my parents' 40th anniversary. They'd hired a professional videographer, were collecting stories from relatives, and planned to play the final cut at a massive garden party in June. They were inviting extended family from all over the country. The whole thing was going to be recorded. It was perfect. I didn't tell Megan my full plan. Just asked if she could get me access to the videographer. She said she'd try. A few days later, she sent me his contact info. Don't say I gave it to you, she wrote. But he's chill. Just tell him you're part of the family and want to contribute a segment. So I did. I reached out as Brian, Aaron's younger brother, and asked if I could record a message for the video tribute. I said I wanted to celebrate our parents in my own way. The guy was polite. Sure, man, just shoot something horizontal and email it to me. I'll slot it in. I recorded 2 versions. Version 1, sweet, clean, emotional. The one I knew they expected. Version 2, the truth. Not a rant. Not a tantrum. Just a calm, steady voiceover with visuals. It started with a photo of me and Aaron at age 7, playing in the backyard. Then a caption. This photo never made it into the family slideshow. Then the side-by-side shots. Me present in the original. Gone in the new. I included timestamps. Metadata. Grandma's voice reading off old dates. Megan's quiet voice confirming who was actually present at what events. I even played a screen recording of Aaron's Facebook post from 2 years ago, with my smiling face replaced by his toddler daughter in Photoshop. Then I ended it with this. You can crop me out of the pictures. You can rewrite stories and replace faces. But you don't get to rewrite me. I was there. I am part of this family. And no amount of editing will change that. I attached the file. Sent it off. But I didn't stop there. I also uploaded the full archive to a private site I built in one weekend. Simple design, password protected, titled The Family They Forgot. I sent the password to 3 people, Megan, Grandma, and, just for fun, Aunt Laura. A week before the anniversary party, Megan texted me a single sentence. They're panicking. Apparently, the videographer had included the wrong version in the final draft. Whether by mistake or as a quiet act of rebellion, I still don't know. But the moment they previewed the video, Aaron and my parents flipped. They tried to get it pulled, tried to reschedule or re-edit. But it was too late. The files had been submitted. The venue was booked. The guests had RSVP'd. They couldn't cancel without raising questions. They could only brace themselves. And I waited. Calm. Steady. Because I knew the moment was coming. The one where the masks would finally crack. Where they'd have to watch the world see exactly what they'd tried so hard to erase. And when that day arrived, I'd be ready. The garden party was set for a warm Saturday afternoon in early June. The sky stretched cloudless above a rented event space that my parents and Aaron had booked just outside their town. A place with white gazebos, neatly trimmed hedges, a string quartet, and round tables decked in soft gold linens. It was supposed to be perfect. A celebration of family legacy. A 40-year anniversary. Grandparents smiling for photos, kids running on the grass, catered food with little name cards. The kind of event where every detail screamed togetherness. Love. Unity. Except this time, the pictures couldn't lie. Not anymore. I didn't attend the event. I debated it, but ultimately, I wanted the moment to be theirs. Their show. Their stage. I didn't need to be physically present for the truth to land where it needed to. My absence would speak for itself, especially when the video played. Megan had agreed to record it for me. Not just the reaction, but the entire moment. The build-up, the expressions, the fallout. She positioned her phone carefully, muting the sound until the video segment began. She even brought a friend who pretended to be one of the photographers, letting her move freely between tables to capture the audience's reactions. The final video was 20 minutes long, and I watched every second. It began with a cheerful montage. Pictures of my parents in the 80s, dancing at their wedding, holding Aaron as a baby. Guests clapped politely, sipping champagne. The music swelled with nostalgia. People smiled, whispered fondly to each other. Then came the next sequence. Our family, through the years. That's when it shifted. The first few photos played as expected. Aaron's birthdays, my parents in front of the old family home. But about 3 minutes in, the screen went black. Then, a single photo. Me and Aaron, ages 7 and 10, holding water guns in the backyard. Unedited. The caption appeared in white font. This photo never made it into the family slideshow. There was a pause. Then the next image, the edited version. The one where I'd been cropped out completely. The audience murmured, confused. Then more, side-by-side comparisons. My face erased. My arm still visible. Whole scenes rewritten. The captions were neutral, almost documentary style. Original, 2006 family camping trip. Edited version posted in 2021. Figure on the left replaced digitally. A few heads turned. Aaron, seated at the front table, visibly stiffened. My mother leaned toward him and whispered something, her hand clutching her pearls. Then my voice came on. Calm, clear, measured, not angry, not vengeful, just honest. I spoke over a slow pan of childhood photos. My name is Brian. I'm the youngest son of the couple being celebrated today. Some of you may not recognize me, and that's no accident. For the past several years, I've been gradually erased from our family's collective memory, removed from photographs, cropped out of narratives, replaced, or simply deleted. I'm not here to cause drama. I just want to share the version of this family you weren't shown. Gasps. Quiet coughs. The clinking of forks stopped. I showed more images. A video clip of Aaron's wedding where I stood beside him. Then the altered version they'd used for their vow renewal, where his son stood in my place. I timed it perfectly. As I spoke about being replaced, the frame froze on that specific swap. My face gone, his child photoshopped in, the lighting not even matched. I watched Aaron's face in the recording. He looked like a man watching his house collapse in slow motion. His wife shifted uncomfortably. My dad closed his eyes. My mom stared at the screen with a rigid smile that cracked at the edges. Then came the final segment. Photos of me and Grandma. Me with Megan. A clip of my cousin Tom saying, "Of course Brian was there." He took this photo, pointing to a group picture where I had been erased. And then Grandma's voice, trembling but firm, reading a quote from a letter she wrote me just 2 weeks prior. Every family has a choice, between truth and comfort, between love and control. I'm sorry I stayed silent so long. You were always part of this family, and you always will be. I closed the video with one final image. Me, standing alone in the backyard last fall, holding a framed photo of my 10th birthday, the real one. Caption: I was always there. You just stopped looking. The screen faded to black. Silence. No music. No applause. Just stunned, awkward silence. In Megan's video, you could see people start shifting in their chairs. A few guests glanced at Aaron, then at my parents. Some whispered. Aunt Laura looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Uncle Rick took a long sip of wine. One of Aaron's friends actually got up and walked outside. Then came the whispers, the tension, and finally, the fallout. I found out later that the rest of the party went off script. The planned speeches were cut. My dad sat quietly for the remainder, barely speaking. My mom tried to laugh it off, tried to joke that Brian's always been theatrical. But people weren't buying it. Megan told me that 3 different relatives approached her privately to ask if the photos were real. She showed them the site, the side-by-sides, the dates. They couldn't deny it. The truth was out. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I updated the private archive to be public. I added a disclaimer at the top. This is not about shaming. This is about remembering what's true. Then I sent the link to every guest who had attended the party. Politely. Just so they could see the full story for themselves. I didn't call anyone out by name. I didn't need to. Within 48 hours, Aaron deactivated his Facebook. 3 days later, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. "Aaron, you win. Hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Because it wasn't about winning. It was about being seen. Megan told me that my parents are taking a break from social events. Apparently, a few longtime family friends pulled away. Quietly. My mom stopped posting family photos altogether. My dad hasn't spoken to Grandma since the party. She's fine with that. "I think I finally stood for something," she said to me on a call. "Feels good, actually." As for me, I moved cities. Got a new job in a bigger firm. One that respects balance and leaves room for passion projects. My photography took off too, after the story of my edited childhood went mildly viral on a local blog. People started asking about my work. I even booked a small solo gallery show. The theme? The ones who stayed in frame. I'm still in touch with Megan. Grandma too. Occasionally, a cousin reaches out and thanks me for saying what they were too afraid to. But mostly, I'm just living, breathing easier. And I've started taking family photos again. Only this time, I'm the one holding the camera. And the final shot? It's always honest. You can erase a face from a photo, but you can't erase the truth from the people who lived it.